Put those things together and they add up to an enjoyable show in my opinion. But there was one problem. It didn't affect the show itself, but it really needs to be brought up. At the end of the month, Impact Wrestling is changing time slots and will be starting an hour earlier. If you had no idea this was happening, I don't blame you, because TNA did nothing to get the word out about this. This is a really big deal, but there was no formal announcement, there were no graphics, no commercials, no promos, no nothing. All they did was have Mike Tenay take a few seconds during 2 matches to mention in passing that they were changing time slots. I would not be at all surprised if a lot of people completely missed that. They're obviously doing this to help the ratings situation, but that's not going to mean shit if no one knows about it. And TNA need to make damn sure everyone knows about this, because yes, they are getting away from the Jersey Shore at various pro sports, but now they're going to have to compete with The Big Bang Theory, one of the biggest shows on television. Now, maybe they don't market to exactly the same audience, but that doesn't mean it's not a ratings powerhouse. TNA need to spend the next few weeks advertising the hell out of this, making sure everyone on the damn planet knows they're moving to 8 p.m., because if their entire audience isn't aware of it when they make that move, they could potentially take a really bad hit from this. Oh, I don't know about that. Actually, I think going head-to-head with The Big Bang Theory is going to work out great for TNA. Seriously? You really think so? Bazinga. Ha ha. This was a weird episode in that, taken on its own, it was actually a pretty good show. But then you realize it was a go-home show, and suddenly everything starts to make a lot less sense. Example number 1, Bully Ray Austin Aries. They have a match at the pay-per-view, and yet they never even came face-to-face this week. It almost seems like the writers were trying to keep them away from each other, which I thought was idiotic at first, but then Chris Regal made a good point. He said, well, they were never going to top that awesome segment they had last week, so rather than trying to top it and probably failing, they just went in the opposite direction. So I thought about that, and it sort of made sense to me. And it wasn't like they were ignoring each other. I mean, yeah, Aries had a match with Zema Ion, really nice match by the way, but he was acknowledging Bully Ray, and you could tell that's the guy that was in his crosshairs, so I thought Austin Aries pulled this off. Bully Ray didn't quite manage it though. He did attack Matt Morgan as an example of what he can do to Aries, but that segment quickly became more about Crimson, and then he had that segment with Joseph Park, which was more about Abyss, so I think it was effective in Aries' case, but not so much with Bully Ray, whose character I just felt was spread too thin for its own good this week. Example number 2, the AJ Daniels Kazarian segment. Now, I actually liked the segment more than I thought I would. The problem is, it did nothing to hype AJ vs. Angle at the pay-per-view, did nothing to hype the tag title match at the pay-per-view, because it was all about something completely separate from those other feuds. Now, if those storylines are going to start to blend into this one now, that's a different story, but it doesn't really do anything to build interest for those sacrifice matches this Sunday, does it? Those were the 2 big examples of this problem, and there were other ones throughout the night, the most glaring one being ending the show with Abyss when he's not booked for the pay-per-view currently, but they did manage to squeeze some hype for Sacrifice in there. The show begins with Bobby Roode. He tries to cut a promo, but gets interrupted pretty quickly by Bob Van Dam. Then Hardy and Anderson show up too, and they all start tearing into Roode at the same time. And watching this, I can't help thinking, you know, this is something heels would do to a babyface. Beating a guy down 3-on-1. Now sure, you could argue that Roode is just getting what he deserves, but it's not exactly something that paints the faces in a good light, or gets any real heat on them for that matter. So that seemed a little ineffective to me. So then Hogan comes out, and once again we see his obvious bias towards Bob Van Dam, because he has this big main event planned, but before he can book it, he wants to get Van Dam's permission. Because he's so afraid of upsetting Van Dam that he can't even exercise his authority as GM without getting Van Dam to sign off on it first.
Oh, what a bunch of bull.
The match he wants to make is a fatal 4-way where whoever wins gets something that they want. Everyone, that is, except for Bobby Roode. If he wins, he gets to pick his sacrifice opponent from among these 3 guys, which is bullshit because wouldn't he just pick Van Dam, who's the guy he's been training for the last month? So then, without even thinking about this, Van Dam, like a dumbass, agrees to it, trading his guaranteed world title shot for a 1 in 4 chance that he can win this main event and then get his title shot with a stipulation that he wants. What a fucking idiot. And yes, he did end up winning the match, but you know what? If you jump out of a plane without a parachute and magically survive, that doesn't mean jumping out of the plane in the first place was a smart move, okay?
This whole show is ridiculous!
Van Dam does this because he's just so sure that he's going to win, and then he wins. So they portray him as an egomaniacal douchebag, and then they reward him for it. I mean, the segment was alright otherwise, but what they're doing with Van Dam right now irritates the fuck out of me. That better be going somewhere good.
This whole show violates everything about my journalistic integrity!
After this, Velvet Sky and Brooke Tessmacher had a match. It was passable, but also pretty sloppy at times. What we learned here is that while she has improved a lot, Tessmacher is not yet at a point where she can carry Velvet to a strong match, and Velvet isn't skilled enough to have a strong performance against a rookie who is, let's be honest, still pretty inexperienced. I think to get the best out of these two, they both still need to be in the ring with someone like a Gail Kim who can sort of take the wheel and guide them through the match. I mean, Tessmacher wins, Gail attacks her afterwards, so their match was hyped up effectively. Not a fantastic match or segment, but it accomplished what it needed to, and it could have been worse. Then Crimson and Matt Morgan were set to have a match that was billed as their final encounter, which was odd because I'm pretty sure their lockdown match was built the same way. This feud has really lost momentum after not being featured for several weeks. I'm kind of thinking they need to put an end to it now. But the match never really starts. Bully Ray attacks Morgan to make an example to Austin Aries. He gets stretchered out. Then Crimson cuts a promo about being undefeated and forces the referee to make the 10 count so he still wins the match anyway, which was funny. And this is the kind of stuff that needed to happen with Crimson. He's finally getting to act like a genuine heel and not just a half-assed heel. You know, I said they needed to do more to put heel heat on him, and lo and behold, he got some genuine heel heat for that promo. And it was a good promo, too. I mean, it wasn't electrifying or anything, but that's certainly the most comfortable Crimson has been on the mic so far. You know, clearly he's been working on the mic skills, and he's getting results, so good for him. Then came the AJ Daniels Kaz reveal, and this is where we finally found out what the big secret was. The secret that made Kaz turn on AJ, the secret they've been building up to for months. Turns out it was photos that hinted AJ possibly having an affair with Dixie Carter, which would call into question the reasons why AJ has been promoted as the face of TNA all these years, why he's had so many title reigns, so many opportunities, while guys like Kaz and Daniels have been in and out of the company and gotten lost in the mid-card time and time again. And this was not what I expected. You know, the photos, they didn't look over the top or stupid. They didn't look photoshopped like I thought they would. And AJ didn't say they were full of shit, but he didn't deny it either. You know, the whole thing was refreshingly subtle, and I think that's why it worked for me. Though, I'm not sure Daniels and Kaz's reasoning is completely seamless here. I mean, suggesting that this is why AJ had all the opportunities he's had, it's not like AJ was ever really handed anything. I mean, most of those opportunities he got were pretty well-deserved. But I guess there's enough of a gray area here to cast some doubt on this. Do I think it'll turn out to be true? No. That would destroy AJ's whole character, and I don't think they'd do that. But since he didn't deny it, I'm sure there's more to this than we know just yet. And surprisingly, I'm actually intrigued. You know, I still think they waited too long to get to this point, but the feud actually got some of my interest back with this segment. You know, I don't know if it'll stay that way, but for now, I'm once again interested to see where this goes. And despite the fact that this did absolutely nothing to hype their respective pay-per-view matches this Sunday, I thought the segment was good. It's not going to get buys for sacrifice, but there you go. Then was the weekly TV title match with Devon defending against Robbie E. Again. Ha-ha! In the time it took me to write a disparaging tweet about how much this feud sucks, Devon beat Robbie in humiliating fashion. Again. Yes! Then Rob Terry attacked him, and the production team had to pump in a whole bunch of canned heat to try to make it sound like these two idiots are over, even though you can see plain as day that the audience is sitting on their hands and not reacting to them whatsoever.
Nobody cares about you guys.
And now we're getting a triple threat match at the pay-per-view that nobody wanted or asked for. Because the lockdown match was a boring waste of fucking time, so they figure, why not throw Rob Terry in there to see if he can make it even worse?
Destination? Horror.
Are there seriously no other challengers for the TV title? Does no one else in the company even want that goddamn thing that we have to see Devon defending it against these two no-talent ass clowns over and over again in boring match after boring match? How many fucking title shots are they gonna get? How many times does Devon have to squash them before they go to the back of the line and he gets a challenger that fans will actually give a shit about? For fuck's sake, TNA, just end this stupid, pointless feud already. We had a James Storm update, which was great to see. Basically, he says he's taking some personal time because he's doubting himself right now. Really well-made video. I miss James Storm. The show is worse for not having him on it, and it's really good to get him in there, at least for a minute. I mean, with his music video doing well in the CMT charts, it's stupid to not have him on the show in some capacity. I just wish we could see more of him. Then Joseph Park and Bully Ray had a confrontation, and I haven't been talking about the Joseph Park thing for a while because there was really nothing to say. The angle was going nowhere fast. But he's finally deduced that Bully Ray probably had something to do with Abyss's disappearance, which I could have told him months ago, but whatever. Joseph Park was really entertaining here, talking without the mic and acting all nervous and jittery to be in front of the crowd. This was some funny stuff. I got a good chuckle out of his performance. You know, it really hasn't been said that much, but he's really done a terrific job with this character. Yeah, I think I prefer Joseph Park to Abyss, honestly. So Bully Ray shoves him over, and I would think the lawyer Joseph Park would then hit him with an assault charge, but no. And this was quite an entertaining segment that finally saw some progression with this storyline. But again, very little that hypes the pay-per-view this Sunday, aside from the tease that Joseph Park may be in attendance, which, even if it is a throwaway pay-per-view, it ought to be getting more hype than this. Then the main event happens. It's a good match, if kind of short. Van Dam wins predictably, which means he gets to pick the stipulation for the world title match on Sunday, and he picks a ladder match. Oh, God. It's back. Then in the final moments, Abyss appeared from out of nowhere, complete with the Kane mood lighting, and warned Joseph Park not to pry into his business. And you know what? That was a really great, well-built-up and executed return. I actually feel interested in what Abyss is going to do next for the first time in a long time. And this would have been an awesome cliffhanger to end the show with if this were not the go-home show to a pay-per-view that Abyss is not even booked on, but it was. And even if Abyss is going to be involved in the pay-per-view somehow, the fact remains he's not booked for it. You have no real incentive to order the pay-per-view on the chance that he might show up if you're an Abyss fan. I mean, if TNA wants what Abyss does at Sacrifice to be a surprise, okay, but just do his return at the pay-per-view then. I mean, that's what pay-per-views are traditionally for, the big dramatic payoff. Don't misunderstand, I enjoyed this episode a lot. Under normal circumstances, I would have had few issues with it, but as a go-home show, this was a failure. A lot of pay-per-view hype was done away with in favor of segments that had nothing to do with Sacrifice and really could have and should have been saved for next week. There was no update on Alex Silva, which I couldn't believe. I mean, I didn't expect him to get a huge push immediately, but Jesus Christ, give the guy a promo, a backstage segment, or something. But beyond that, Slammiversary is clearly what they're building toward. Sacrifice has pretty much been thrown under the bus, which is a shame because the card is actually really good, minus the bullshit TV title match. Anyway, that's it for me. I'll see you guys next week. In the meantime, enjoy Sacrifice and its ladder match main event. Well, old friend, it's time to bring you out of retirement. Once more into the breach.